Once upon a time, in a wide green valley where the air was sweet and the sky stretched endlessly in soft shades of blue, there lived 3 little pigs. They were brothers, born in the same cozy farmhouse, raised under the warmth of the same sun, and lulled to sleep by the same gentle breezes that drifted across the meadows at night. The valley where they lived was a place of peace. Tall grasses swayed like golden waves, bending with every sigh of the wind. Wildflowers painted the fields with dots of yellow, purple, and white, their petals trembling with morning dew. Beyond the meadow lay a deep forest, full of tall, whispering trees whose branches swayed slowly as though they were always half asleep themselves. A narrow river wound lazily between the hills, its surface glimmering whenever the sunlight touched it. Birds circled above in slow arcs, and now and then a butterfly would drift from one flower to the next as though carried by invisible strings. The 3 pigs loved this valley, and each one dreamed of building a home here. They had grown big enough now to live on their own, and the time had come for them to step out into the meadow and find their places in the world. The eldest pig carried himself with a quiet, thoughtful air. His eyes were calm and steady, and when he walked, he moved slowly, as though he always had plenty of time. He liked to plan things carefully, to think about tomorrow as well as today. The middle pig had a cheerful, easy nature. He laughed quickly and often, and he liked things to be simple. He did not worry much about tomorrow, today was enough for him. He liked to hum songs, to watch the sunlight through the leaves, and to find comfort in the small joys of the moment. The youngest pig was playful and lively. He ran across the fields chasing dragonflies, lay on his back to watch the clouds drift overhead, and sang to himself whenever he was alone. He liked the sound of his own laughter and the feel of the wind in his ears. He dreamed not of plans or careful houses, but of the fun he would have once he was finished with work. And so, on a gentle morning when the sun rose like a golden lantern above the hills, the 3 pigs said farewell to the farmhouse and their family, and stepped into the meadow with joy in their hearts. The grass brushed against their legs as they walked, and the air smelled of clover and soft earth. The youngest pig stopped often to watch bees as they moved from flower to flower, their wings shimmering like silver threads. The middle pig paused to pick wild berries, popping them into his mouth and savoring the sweetness. The eldest pig carried a small bundle tied with twine, inside which he had tucked bread and apples for the journey, for he had thought ahead and knew they might be hungry before they found a place to rest. They walked together, side by side, and as they walked they talked of the homes they wished to build. "I want a house that is quick and easy," said the youngest pig, skipping as he went. "I'll make it out of straw. Soft, golden straw that smells like summer. I'll finish quickly, and then I'll have time to sing and play and nap beneath the trees." The middle pig nodded. "That sounds nice, but straw seems a little too soft for me. I will make my house out of sticks. Strong branches that I can gather from the forest. It will be stronger than straw, but it won't take too long. Then I can enjoy my days without working too hard." The eldest pig listened quietly, then said, "I will build a house of bricks. It will take time and it will take patience, but it will be strong. Strong enough to last through wind and rain. When I lie down to sleep at night, I want to know I am safe." The brothers walked on, each imagining his own home, and the meadow around them seemed to glow with promise. The sunlight touched the tall grasses until they shone like gold. Butterflies drifted lazily past, their wings opening and closing in a slow rhythm, like breathing. In the distance, the forest waited, quiet and green, its shadows deep and cool. By midday the pigs rested beside the river. The water moved gently, swirling around stones that had been smoothed by many years. The pigs lay down in the grass, listening to the soft trickle of water and the low hum of bees nearby. A warm breeze stirred the air, carrying with it the scent of wild mint that grew along the riverbank. The youngest pig stretched out and closed his eyes. "This meadow is so peaceful," he said drowsily. "I could fall asleep right here." The eldest pig smiled but shook his head. "We must find a place to build our homes. We need roofs over our heads before night comes." So after they had rested, the pigs rose again and continued their walk. They followed the curve of the river until it bent toward the forest. The trees there grew tall, their leaves rustling softly like whispers. The air beneath the branches was cool, and the light fell in patterns on the ground, shifting as the leaves swayed above. The youngest pig stopped and clapped his hooves. "Here. This is where I will build my house. The meadow is full of straw, and I can gather it easily. I'll build a small house here, close to the river, where I can listen to the water as I fall asleep." The middle pig nodded, but he went a little farther, into the edge of the forest where branches lay scattered on the ground. He bent to pick one up and tested it in his hooves. "Yes," he said, "this is where I will build my house. The trees will give me all the sticks I need, and I'll be shaded by the forest when the days grow hot." The eldest pig looked farther still, past the trees to a small rise of land where the soil was firm and red. He touched it with his hoof and said, "Here I will build my house. I will make bricks from this earth, bake them in the sun, and stack them strong. From this hill I can see the meadow, the river, and the forest, and my house will stand for many years." And so the three pigs hugged one another, wished each other luck, and parted ways to begin their work. The meadow was bright with afternoon light, the forest hummed with the voices of birds, and the air was filled with the promise of new beginnings. The youngest pig set off to gather straw, humming to himself. The middle pig wandered the forest, looking for sticks that had fallen. The eldest pig began to shape bricks from the earth, pressing them carefully and laying them in the sun to dry. And as each little pig worked in his own way, the meadow grew quieter, the shadows longer, and the sky softer with the colors of evening. Far away, deep in the forest, another figure stirred, a wolf, padding silently between the trees. But that part of the story would come later. For now, the meadow was full of peace, and the three little pigs, each in their own place, had begun the work of building their dreams. Underscore 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 underscore. The youngest pig awoke the next morning to a golden sunrise spilling over the meadow. The grasses sparkled with dew, each droplet like a tiny crystal catching the early light. He stretched his legs, yawned with a soft squeak, and looked around at the wide open field where he had chosen to make his home. "This is the perfect place," he murmured to himself, his voice full of cheer. "I will have a soft bed of straw, a roof that glows like sunshine, and windows that let in the gentle breeze. My house will be finished in no time at all, and then I'll be free to sing, to nap, and to dream." He trotted into the meadow, where the grass grew tall and golden. Each stalk swayed slowly in the morning air, brushing against the others with a sound like soft whispers. The pig gathered an armful, hugging it close, and the straw tickled his cheeks. He laughed as he carried it to the spot he had chosen, near the curve of the river. The river itself moved quietly nearby, its voice a steady murmur, as though it were telling a never-ending story to anyone who listened. Birds fluttered above, diving down to sip from the water before darting away again. The pig paused to watch them, his eyes dreamy. "Yes," he said softly, "this will be a fine place to rest." All morning long, he gathered straw. He walked slowly, stopping often to watch butterflies flit past or to listen to the bees buzzing lazily from flower to flower. Whenever he grew tired, he lay down in the meadow grass, staring up at the clouds that drifted like ships across the sky. Sometimes he imagined one looked like a castle. Another looked like a great mountain. One, he was sure, looked like the face of a smiling pig. After each rest, he rose again, humming a gentle tune to himself as he gathered more straw. His pile grew taller and taller until it looked like a golden haystack shining in the sun. By midday, the little pig decided to begin his building. He tied bundles of straw together with long, green vines he had found near the river. Slowly, carefully, though sometimes playfully too, he arranged the bundles into walls. The straw was light and easy to move, and before long, a little house began to take shape. The walls were soft and glowing, letting bits of sunlight peek through in golden beams. The roof sloped gently, made of layered straw that rustled whenever the breeze passed by. The pig built a door from a thick mat of woven stalks, tied tightly so it could swing open and closed. When at last he stepped inside, he smiled with delight. The floor was soft under his hooves, and the air smelled sweet, like dried grass on a summer day. He lay down in the middle of the room and let out a happy sigh. "This is all I need," he said. "A house that is quick, a house that is soft, a house that is warm. Now I can spend my days in peace." And so he did. The next few days passed slowly, gently, dreamily. The pig rose with the sun, ate berries by the river, and then stretched in the grass outside his little straw house. Sometimes he sang songs, his voice drifting like a lullaby across the meadow. Sometimes he napped in the shade, his ears twitching as the wind carried the sound of crickets and distant birds. Inside his straw house, the light always glowed golden, no matter the time of day. In the mornings, beams of sunshine spilled through tiny gaps in the straw, making patterns on the floor. At night, the moonlight slipped in, silver and soft, turning the walls pale and cool. One evening, as the pig sat at his doorway watching the sky turn orange and pink, he thought of his brothers. "I wonder how their houses are coming along," he mused. "Perhaps soon I will visit them. But for now, I am content." He yawned and curled up on his straw bed, listening to the river's endless murmur until sleep carried him away. Days stretched into weeks. The meadow changed with the seasons, daisies gave way to tall purple thistles, the grasses turned from bright green to golden, and dragonflies danced above the river like tiny sparks of light. The pig felt happy and safe, cradled in his little straw home. But one afternoon, as clouds drifted lazily above and the air grew very still, the pig heard something new. A sound, faint at first, but growing nearer, the soft padding of paws on the grass, the low rustle of branches parting in the forest. The pig sat up, his ears twitching. Through the straw wall, he saw a shadow move slowly across the meadow. A figure was approaching, tall, with fur the color of ash and eyes that gleamed like amber. It was the wolf. Now, in this gentle telling, the wolf was not rushing, not fierce, not cruel. He was tired. He had wandered far, padding softly through the forest for many days. His paws ached from walking, his eyes felt heavy, and though his belly rumbled, it was not hunger that filled his mind, it was the longing for rest. When he saw the little house of straw, glowing golden in the sunlight, his ears perked up. How soft it looked! How warm! How peaceful! The wolf approached slowly, his tail swaying gently behind him. He lifted his paw and knocked, not hard, but softly, tap, tap, tap. "Little pig," he called, his voice low and rumbling, like a deep sigh of wind through trees. "Little pig, may I come in?" The pig's heart fluttered. He remembered what his mother had once told him about wolves, to be careful, to be cautious. And so he called back, his voice trembling but polite. "No, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin." The wolf sighed, not with anger, but with the sound of weariness. His breath stirred the straw, making it tremble. He sighed again, and the walls began to sway. One more sigh, long and low, loosened the vines that held the straw together. Softly, quietly, the golden house melted back into the meadow. The straw tumbled down in a gentle heap, falling like hay scattered after a harvest. The little pig squeaked and darted away, unharmed but startled. He looked back once, saw his straw home melting into the grass, and then ran as quickly as his hooves could carry him toward the forest, where his brother's stick house waited. The wolf did not chase him. Instead, he stood among the scattered straw, his ears drooping, his body weary. He sighed once more, long and low, and then padded slowly after, not with speed, but with the heavy steps of someone who only wished to find a place to rest. Deeper in the forest, the middle pig had chosen his place. The trees stood tall, their trunks stretching high into the sky, their branches weaving together to form a roof of green leaves. Sunlight filtered down in shifting patches, dappling the forest floor with golden and green patterns that moved as the breeze stirred above. The pig walked slowly through the woods, humming to himself. He carried a small basket in which he placed berries he found along the way, and every so often he stopped to nibble a few, savoring their sweetness. The forest smelled of pine and moss, rich and earthy, and everywhere he stepped the ground was soft with fallen leaves. I will build my house here, he decided, resting his back against the trunk of a great oak tree. Not too far from the meadow, not too deep in the forest. Here I will have shade in summer, shelter from the winds in winter, and plenty of sticks all around. My home will be strong enough to keep me safe, but easy enough to build so I can spend my time enjoying the forest. And so, the middle pig began his work. He wandered the forest, gathering sticks. Some were long and straight, fallen from the higher branches. Others were short and crooked, shaped by the winds that had once bent them. He carried them back to his chosen spot in bundles, stacking them neatly until the pile grew as tall as he was. As he worked, the forest seemed to hum with life around him. Birds sang in the branches above, filling the air with cheerful songs. A squirrel darted from tree to tree, its bushy tail flickering like a banner. The pig paused often to watch, smiling softly, his heart light. By afternoon, his pile of sticks was large enough, and he began to build. Slowly, carefully, he leaned sticks against one another to form the walls. He tied them with vines, weaving them in and out until the frame grew strong. He added more branches, layer upon layer, until the walls were thick and the little gaps between them filled with leaves and moss. The roof he built from longer branches, laid across one another like fingers, and over them he spread a blanket of leaves. The leaves rustled whenever the breeze touched them, a soft sound like whispering lullabies. When the house was finished, the pig stepped inside and let out a sigh of contentment. The air smelled of wood and moss, cool and earthy. The light that slipped through the tiny cracks was gentle, softer than the bright beams of the meadow. He lay down on the leafy floor and smiled. Yes, he said to himself, this is the house for me. Not too much work, not too little. Strong enough for comfort, easy enough for peace. And so the middle pig settled into his new home. His days were quiet and pleasant. He rose with the dawn, when the birds began their morning songs, and he stretched at his doorway, watching the sunlight pour through the leaves above. He walked to the river to drink its clear water, and sometimes he visited the meadow to speak with his youngest brother, who had built his golden straw house nearby. The forest gave him joy. He loved the sound of woodpeckers tapping at trunks, the sight of deer moving gracefully through the shadows, and the way the air was always cool beneath the tall canopy. At night, he listened to the chorus of crickets, their steady song carrying through the stillness. Days passed, one after another, and the middle pig felt at peace. But one evening, as shadows lengthened and the forest grew hushed, he heard the soft crunch of paws on leaves. Through the cracks in the stick wall he saw the wolf, gray and weary, padding slowly toward the little house. The wolf paused before the door and knocked, tap, tap, tap. Little pig, he said softly, little pig, may I come in? The pig's heart thudded, but he remembered what his mother had taught him. No, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. The wolf lowered his head. His ears drooped. He sighed, a long, deep sigh, like wind moving slowly through the trees. The leaves on the roof trembled. The vines loosened. The sticks leaned, creaked, and fell away. With a soft rustling sound, the house gave way, collapsing gently back to the forest floor. The middle pig squealed and ran, joining his younger brother on the path that led to the hill. Together, they hurried toward their eldest brother's house. The wolf stood among the fallen sticks, his breath slow, his eyes heavy. He did not chase. He only followed, his steps weary, toward the hill. On that hill, the eldest pig was already at work. The soil beneath his hooves was firm and red, rich and strong. When he pressed it, it held its shape. When he scooped a handful, it crumbled into smooth clay. He nodded to himself, slow and steady. Yes, he whispered. This is where my house shall be. A house not of straw, not of sticks, but of bricks. A house that will last through wind and rain, through summer and winter. A house that will stand, strong and true, as long as I need it. The eldest pig began by making bricks. He pressed the earth into molds, smoothing the edges with care, then set them in neat rows beneath the sun. One by one, the bricks dried, red and strong, glowing in the light of day. The work was slow, but the pig did not hurry. He paused to drink from the river, to rest beneath the trees, to listen to the calls of the birds. Then he returned to his bricks, patient and steady. When he had enough, he began to build. He laid the bricks one by one, pressing them together with wet clay. The walls rose slowly, layer upon layer. He left spaces for windows, for light to pour through, and a wide doorway for his brothers to enter. The house grew taller, stronger, steadier. He built a roof of beams, covered it with tiles baked from clay, and raised a chimney that reached for the sky. Inside, he laid a stone floor and built a hearth for fire. He placed a bed of straw in the corner, and shelves for food. At last, he stepped back. The house stood solid, its red bricks glowing like embers in the evening light. The pig's heart swelled with quiet pride. "Yes," he murmured. "This is the house for me." And so he lived, calmly, peacefully, within his brick house. He planted herbs in his garden, tended his fire, and welcomed his brothers whenever they came to visit. The walls held firm, the roof stood steady, and inside all was safe. But the wolf was drawing nearer. Step by slow step, breath by heavy breath, he climbed the hill, his eyes set upon the strong brick house. For a while, the valley was filled with nothing but peace. The three little pigs lived in their homes, each one shaped by their own hearts and their own cho. Each was dear to the pig who built it, and each held its own kind of comfort. The youngest pig loved his golden straw house. When the morning sun rose, light streamed through the soft walls in beams of honey yellow. The pig would open his eyes to find the room glowing as though it were woven from sunlight itself. He stretched in his straw bed, yawned, and listened to the river nearby, its water murmuring in a language only the earth could understand. Birds flitted past the walls, and sometimes their shadows danced across the floor like playful children. He spent his days wandering the meadow. Sometimes he lay down in the tall grass, letting the stalks sway around him while clouds drifted slowly above. He traced shapes in the sky, a ship, a castle, a smiling face. Other times he followed butterflies as they floated on invisible winds, their wings opening and closing in a rhythm so gentle it made his own eyes grow heavy. In the evenings, the straw house became a nest of comfort. The walls rustled softly when the breeze passed, whispering him to sleep. He curled into his bed, warm and content, while the stars shimmered above. The middle pig loved his forest cottage. His mornings began with the call of birds overhead, a chorus of chirps and trills echoing through the branches. Sunlight slipped through the leafy roof in mottled patches, painting the walls with shifting patterns of gold and green. He often began his day with a walk. He liked the forest paths, where roots curled across the soil like resting snakes, and mushrooms grew in clusters along the trunks of fallen logs. Squirrels darted past, carrying acorns, their tails twitching like little flags. Sometimes deer passed quietly, pausing to nibble on leaves before vanishing into the shadows. Inside his stick house, the air smelled of wood and moss. The roof rustled whenever the wind blew, and the sound was like a lullaby, not sharp or loud, but soft, like pages turning in a book. At night, he lit a small lantern made of fireflies caught in a jar. Their glow shimmered faintly, casting warm light across the room. The middle pig liked to hum songs. Sometimes they were tunes from childhood, simple melodies that repeated like lullabies. Sometimes he made up his own, following the rhythm of the forest, tap tap from the woodpecker, swish swish from the trees, chirp chirp from the crickets. His songs lulled him until his breath became the final note. The eldest pig loved his strong home of bricks. Each morning he awoke to sunlight streaming through his windows, falling in golden rectangles across the stone floor. He lit a small fire in the hearth to warm his breakfast, and the fire crackled with a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. Outside, he tended his garden of herbs, mint, rosemary, thyme, and sage. Their green leaves trembled in the breeze, filling the air with fragrance, cool mint, sharp rosemary, sweet thyme, grounding sage. Inside, the house was quiet and calm. The walls held steady against wind and rain, and the rooms stayed cool in summer and warm in winter. At night, when rain fell against the roof, the sound was steady and soothing, 1,000 tiny taps that lulled him into sleep. He sometimes invited his brothers for supper. They ate roasted roots, fresh berries, bowls of porridge, and laughed softly as the firelight flickered on their faces. Afterward, they stepped outside to watch the stars rise. Slowly, their voices grew quiet. Slowly, their eyes grew heavy. And one by one, they returned to their homes, safe and content. And so the days drifted by, slow as clouds across the summer sky. Each pig lived in his own way, and each found joy in the life he had built. The youngest loved the playfulness of his straw house, glowing like gold. The middle loved the simplicity of his stick house, shaded by trees. The eldest loved the strength of his brick house, steady and safe. In the valley, time felt soft. Mornings came with birdsong, afternoons with the hum of bees, evenings with the quiet of crickets. Nights fell gently, stars glowing like lanterns scattered across the sky. And though none of them yet knew it, their peaceful days would soon cross paths with the wolf, who wandered still among the trees, not cruel, not rushing, but weary, searching slowly for a place to rest. But for now, the valley was still. And in their 3 little houses, the pigs were safe, content, and dreaming. Far away, deep in the forest, a wolf walked slowly beneath the trees. His paws pressed into the soft earth, leaving faint prints among the fallen leaves. His fur was gray, brushed with silver where sunlight touched it through the branches. His eyes, though golden, were not sharp with hunger. They glowed faintly, like lanterns dim at the end of a long day. The wolf was weary. He had been walking for many nights, padding along winding paths that led nowhere in particular. He did not rush, for there was no need. He did not hunt, for hunger was not his strongest feeling. What filled him instead was a quiet longing, not for food, but for rest. The forest sang softly around him. Leaves whispered high above, stirred by gentle winds. Branches creaked like old doors opening slowly. Birds called in the distance, their notes drifting like silver threads through the air. Sometimes the wolf paused beside a stream, lowering his head to drink the cool water. The stream giggled over stones, its sound like soft laughter. Other times, he rested in a clearing, where fireflies drifted, blinking their tiny lanterns on and off. The ground was soft with moss, the air rich with pine and earth. The wolf breathed in deeply, filling his chest, then sighed out again, his breath mingling with the wind. When night fell, he looked up. The stars stretched above him, countless and steady. The moon glowed gently, casting a silver path through the branches. The wolf curled into the grass, his tail over his nose, his body sinking into the earth. He listened to the crickets' chorus, to owls calling low and steady, to the silence that wrapped around him like a blanket. Slowly, he drifted into sleep. At dawn, dew clung to his fur, each drop sparkling like a gem. He shook himself, stretched, and began again. Step by step, breath by breath, onward he wandered. One afternoon, the wind shifted. It carried new scents to the wolf's nose. He paused. He breathed in. There was the smell of straw, dry and sweet, golden as summer fields. Beneath it, the smell of sticks, woody and earthy, like the forest floor. Beneath that still, the smell of bricks, clay baked warm beneath the sun. The wolf's ears lifted. His eyes softened. Houses, he murmured, though no one was there to hear. Homes, warm places with roofs and voices. Without hurry, his paws carried him forward. The wolf came first to a little house of straw. It glowed golden in the sunlight, soft and warm, its roof rustling whenever the breeze stirred. He stood before it a long time, gazing with tired eyes. At last, he raised a paw and knocked, tap, tap, tap. Inside, the youngest pig froze. He peered through the straw and saw the wolf waiting. His heart thudded, but he called out. No, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. The wolf closed his eyes. He sighed. Not a fierce breath, but a weary one. The straw trembled. He sighed again, longer. The straw swayed. He sighed once more, deepest of all, and the vines came loose. Softly, gently, the little house melted back into the meadow, falling into a golden heap. The pig squealed and darted away, hooves pattering toward the forest. The wolf did not chase. He only lowered his head and sighed again, before following, slow and steady. The wolf came next to a cottage of sticks, bound with vines, roofed with leaves. It blended into the forest, its walls creaking quietly. He stepped close and knocked, tap, tap, tap. Inside, the middle pig's ears twitched. He peered through a gap and saw the wolf waiting. His breath caught, but he answered. No, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. The wolf sighed. Long and low, like wind through the trees. The leaves on the roof rustled. Another sigh, the vines slipped loose. One more sigh, and the sticks leaned, groaned, and gently tumbled down. The pig squeaked and ran, joining his younger brother. Together, they hurried toward the hill where their eldest brother's house stood tall. The wolf did not chase. He stood among the fallen sticks, then padded onward, each step heavier than the last. At last, the wolf reached the hill. There, the brick house stood. Its red walls glowed in the last light of the day. The chimney rose tall. The herb garden swayed in the evening wind, filling the air with mint and rosemary. The wolf climbed the hill. When he reached the door, he paused. His body ached. His eyes were heavy. Yet still, he lifted his paw and knocked, tap, tap, tap. Inside, the three pigs huddled close. The eldest stood firm. Again, the wolf's voice came, deep but soft. Little pigs, may I come in? The eldest pig answered, steady as stone. No, no, not by the hair on our chinny chin chins. The wolf closed his eyes. He sighed once. The bricks held. He sighed again. Still, the walls stood steady. A third sigh left his chest. The chimney did not waver. At last, the wolf lowered himself to the ground. He curled against the base of the brick wall, his fur brushing the rough surface. His tail wrapped around his nose. The herbs swayed above him, the bricks gave off the day's warmth, and the night's crickets sang their song. Slowly, gently, the wolf drifted into sleep. Inside the brick house, the three pigs sat together by the fire. The eldest placed another log upon the flames, and it crackled softly, filling the room with warmth. Shadows swayed across the red brick walls, moving as though they too were drifting toward sleep. The youngest pig, still shaken from the fall of his straw house, pressed close to his brothers. His eyes flicked toward the door where the wolf had knocked. Will he come in? He whispered. The eldest pig shook his head gently. No. The house is strong. The bricks will hold. Listen. And so they listened. Outside, the night had deepened. The crickets sang in steady rhythm, their voices rising and falling like the rocking of a cradle. The leaves of the forest rustled, not sharply, but softly, like a mother's song. And beneath the window, they heard the wolf's breathing. Slow. Heavy. Steady. The breathing of someone asleep. The pigs relaxed. The youngest pig sighed, his eyes softening. The middle pig hummed a tune, low and gentle. The eldest pig smiled, calm and certain. The fire glowed warmly, casting gold across the hearth. They shared a simple supper of porridge and berries, eating slowly, voices hushed. Now and then, the eldest pig rose to tend the fire, and each time the flames whispered back with their quiet crackling song. When their bowls were empty, they tidied them away, laid down straw mats near the hearth, and curled up together. The eldest pig pulled a blanket over them, thick and soft, smelling faintly of lavender from his garden. The youngest yawned, his eyes drifting closed. The middle pig leaned against his eldest brother. The eldest, calm and steady, stayed awake a little longer, listening, to the fire, to the crickets, to the safe stillness within the walls he had built. Outside, the wolf remained curled against the bricks. He stirred once, then sighed and settled deeper, his tail wrapped close. He dreamed not of chasing, not of hunger, but of walking through meadows, of drinking from rivers, of lying in the warmth of the sun. Above, the stars shimmered, countless and steady. The moon glowed, silver and calm, spreading its light across the meadow, the forest, and the hill where the brick house stood. The river whispered as it wound through the valley. The meadow swayed gently, the tall grasses bending as one. The forest hummed quietly, as though it too were falling asleep. The straw in the field lay scattered, glowing pale in moonlight. The sticks in the forest rested, silent now upon the ground. And on the hill, the brick house stood strong, its chimney tall, its windows warm with golden firelight. Inside, the pig slept. Outside, the wolf slept. And all around, the valley itself seemed to dream. And so the three little pigs found safety. The youngest, with his laughter, was safe. The middle, with his songs, was safe. The eldest, with his patience, was safe. And the wolf, once feared, found peace too, not by breaking walls, but by finding a place to rest at last. The night drifted on. The stars shimmered. The fire glowed. The valley sighed. And slowly, gently, the story itself closed its eyes. Not an end, perhaps, but a beginning. A beginning of dreams. Where all is safe. And all is still. And all is peace. The end.